Alright, welcome back to Crabby, and today we're going to do the full rules breakdown video for Solenia. If you want to see the playthrough video, click on the link below and it'll take you directly there. So Solenia at its core is a very simple resource management game. The theme is we're sort of on this spaceship or blimp going around the world. We're going to be collecting resources and then trying to fulfill some recipes / deliveries. Alright, so this is a really simple game. You know what? Instead of talking, let me see if I can finish this video in record time. So let's go. Alright, so let's get things started by setting up our main game board area. So now this board is made up of these 5 weirdly shaped tiles. Okay, you're going to have most of them that are dark on one side and light on the other side, but there's one special one that's a dusk one. Alright, for this one, you're going to pick whichever side you want, and then on this one, it's going to sort of indicate which side is going to be dark and which side is going to be light. Alright, so if I set up my dusk, which is the middle board this way, that means I need 2 dark side, pick randomly tiles before it, and then you're going to take 2 light side randomly after it. All right, sort of something like this. If this tile was flipped the other way, then I would have 2 light ones on the back and 2 dark ones in the front. All right, the only other thing you need to set up around the board is the delivery tile. So again, light side cities and dark side cities. You can lay out 3 in a 2 and 3 player game. So I'm simulating a 3-player game here, or 4 of each in a 4-player game. All right, all the other resources and stuff, just keep them on the side. You're going to grab those during the gameplay. All right, for each player, you're going to give them a player board and their deck of 16 cards that tie with the color of their ship. All right, now, before I continue, there are 3 ways to set up your player board when you start the game. All right, so there's the most basic way of playing, which everyone's going to play on the sun side of their player board. All right. Nothing special going on here. You're just going to start the game this way. By the way, I'm going to go through all the rules of the different sizes of the boards later on in the video, but for right now, we're just doing the setup. So for this one, nothing special going on. All right, the other way to play is with the reverse winter side here. Again, nothing special going on if you are playing with the pre-printed stuff on the board. And the third way to play, which does require a little bit more of a setup, is playing with the improvement tiles. All right, so instead of playing with the pre-printed stuff, you're going to populate this with some special powers. All right, so now the way this works is you're going to take tiles, all right, so the level 1 tiles, equal to the number of players, and you're sort of going to do in reverse turn order a draft for these powers. All right, so I'm going to simulate a 3-player game, so you're going to lay out 3 level 1s and pairs of level 3s. All right, so you're going to see some of them are for the dark and some are for the light. So I'm going to have a pair here, and then a pair here. Alright, so starting with the last player, so 3rd player here in a 3-player game, they're going to take one of the combinations. Obviously, you're going to end up taking one of a level 1 and another one which is a combo of level 3. So let's say they would have liked this combo. They're going to slot it into their board. Alright, then 2nd player and 1st player is going to grab whatever they want. Let's say this. And then it'll come back to the 3rd player who's going to now select one of the level 1s because that's the one that they're missing. They're going to go with this one, and then the other players will make their selections. And then their stuff is pretty much set up and ready to go. All right. Also, another note is in a 3 and 4 player game, the 3rd player and 4th player start with some resources. It would be wood for a 3rd player and stone for the 4th player. All right. After that, they're going to draw 3 cards off the top of your deck, and you're pretty much ready to get started playing the game. All right, so let's dive straight into the rules here. So the way the game flows is that starting with the 1st player, on your turn, you're always going to be playing one of the 3 cards in your hand out onto the game board. All right, and that's it. All right, you're going to go do one of 2 things every single time. You're either going to the floating islands to collect resources and putting them on your ship, or you're going to be visiting cities, which are the start locations, to then do deliveries, which is turning in those resources for the recipes of the delivery and then getting those bonus chits out onto your board, and they're going to score you victory points as well. All right, and that's all you're going to do on your turn. You're always going to be playing one card. You're going to resolve whatever it is, and then you're going to move on to the next player. They're going to play a card, resolve it, go again. And then you're just going to loop around the table till everyone's gone through all 16 cards of their deck. So nothing ever happens in between players' turns or at the end of a round. There's not really rounds in this game, and that's it. And then when everyone's deck runs out, you're going to go straight to end game scoring. All right, so the first thing I want to cover are the card placement rules. So like I mentioned, on your turn, you're always going to be playing one card out onto the game board. All right, and you can play the card wherever you want, except that if you go farther than 1 space away from the blimp or one of your previously played cards, you do have to pay a penalty in resources, any resources you want. All right, so on my turn, let's say my first card, I want to play it here. Any of the 6 spots around the blimp, well, that's free. I'm not doing an extended journey. That's fine. I'm going to just collect my resources. All right, but let's say I wanted to place my card here for whatever reason. Well, I'm gonna have to pay a 1 cost penalty because I'm 1 farther away from one of those free spaces. All right, but let's say my first turn would have been here. All right, at the end of your turn, I forgot to mention that you always draw back up to 3. All right, and then on my next turn, I can place it here for free or here for free. But if I wanted to go here, for example, I would still have to pay a 1 cost penalty because it would be free from here and 1 cost away. So you're gonna take that resource from your ship. It could be any resource, and you're just gonna add it back to the general supply. And then you would be able to add your card there. All right, so those are the only card placement rules. Oh, obviously you can't overlay on top of another player's card. All right, next let's talk about, the card placement when it deals with the anatomy of a card. All right, so first let's talk about collecting the resources. All right, so when playing a card on a resource spot, all right, you're gonna collect the amount of resources indicated on the top of the card, which is the number. All right, so in this example here, you're gonna look at the middle, it's water, and you're gonna collect 2, go to general supply, you take 2, and you add it to your ship's holding area. All right, now this is a resource management game. You are very limited to the amount of resources you can hold on your ship, which is indicated by the squares on your ship. All right, and if you are collecting more than you can hold, well, you're gonna have to toss them overboard, but you get to decide what combination of resources you want to keep. All right, but you are very limited. All right, and that would be your turn if you are collecting resources. You play a card, you collect, and then you're gonna move on to the next player. All right, the other option is, like I mentioned, is you're gonna go to the city spaces. All right, so let's say over here. Let's say my previous turn I played here, so it would be free, and then my next turn I would play here. All right, now when playing in a city, instead of collecting resources, you are going to collect some bonus points equal to the number. All right, so star. So you're going to collect 2 star worth of points and add that to my general supply, for example, if I played the card here. All right, and then you'll be able to do a delivery. All right, so that's turning in resources to take one of those tiles. All right, now if you go to a daytime city, you're only looking at the daytime deliveries, and if you go to a nighttime city, you're gonna only look at the nighttime deliveries. All right, so in this example, let's say I went to this daytime city over here. I can turn in my 3 water, a stone, and a wood to the general supply to then get this tile right over here. All right, so that's how visiting a city works. Now, when you get one of these tiles, they do get to slot in directly into your player board like so. All right, if you are playing with the sun side of the board, the deliveries you make always go from left to right. You're gonna see little 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so on. So, your second daytime one's always gonna go here and then here and then here and so on and so on. If you are playing on the winter side though, things are going to change just a little bit. So you're going to have 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, and 2 number 3s. So your first one can go into either of the number 1 spaces. Then after that, you can go to either of the number 2s and then either of the number 3s to get certain bonuses that you're willing to get. All right, also, whenever you're slotting these in, usually you're going to get a reward right away or a passive ability that you'll use in the future. I'll talk about all these bonuses in a further section in this video. But in this example, let's just keep it on the sun side. We're going to go to the first spot here, and this one is as soon as I slot it in, I'm going to get a wood from the general supply and add it to my ship. After playing a card, don't forget to refill your hand to 3, and then I'll move on to the next player. All right, next let's talk about the special rules when playing a 0 card out onto the game board, and that's how the blimp moves and simulates that we're flying around the planet, because it's going to go from the light side area of the planet and eventually it'll turn into the dark side, and there you go, that's how stuff also falls off the track, and that's how we're going to look at the bottom of a card. All right, so again, basic placement rules, again, free next to one of your cards or next to the blimp. All right, and you can place it wherever you want. All right, after placing the card, if it is a city, you can still do a delivery and so on. All right, but after performing your delivery, that's when you're going to move the blimp. All right, again, a little icon there as a reminder. So first things first, you're going to take the blimp and move it forward. All right, after that, you're going to take the tile, game board tile, that's all the way in the back of the line. All right, and then you're going to trigger all the fall effects of all the cards that are on this tile. All right, so this is going to fall off, and the pink player is going to get a wood and a stone from the general supply and add it to their resources. All right, and then any cards that fall off, you're going to put them after in that player's discard pile. All right, I like to put it just on the other side of the board. All right, when you take care of all the cards that fell off, you're gonna flip this card board over and add it to the front of the line. All right, then you're gonna obviously push the board closer to the middle of the table, and then just move on to the next player's turn. All right, then the next player, let's say they played a 0 on their turn, wherever it may be. This is gonna go forward. This tile is gonna fall off. Boom. They're gonna generate a wood from the general supply. So let's say I would gain a wood. Add this to my discard pile, flip this over, and move it to the front of the line and move things back. All right, so that's how we're simulating that we're flying through the air. All right, so now the 3 basic things that you'll see always at the bottom of this is one is this icon here, which means if you played this card on top of that resource location, when it falls off, you'll gain a victory point from the general supply. The other one is straight up victory resources. So this one will give me a water and a food from the general supply. And the other one that you'll see is a number. And this basically just means whatever's in the middle of that card, you're going to gain when it falls off. So this would be, for example, a stone from the general supply. All right, so that's it. All right, cards are going to be falling off. You're going to be adding them to your discard pile, and the ship's going to be moving through the air. All right, those are pretty much all the rules to the game. All right, again, you're going to go through all 16 cards of your deck. When everyone's done that, you're going to go straight to endgame scoring, and the endgame score is really simple. All right, you're going to score always 3 things. All right, your score is going to consist of 1, all the victory point chits, stars that you generated throughout the game. 2, you're going to add up all the scores of all the deliveries that you've made. All right, so all the tiles that you have around your airship. All right, and 3, any bonuses that you may get from your player board. All right, so for the sun side, for example, you'll score 5 points if you have a delivery here, and another 5 points if you have a delivery here. And same thing for the bottom over here. All right, you tally those 3 things together, whoever's the most is going to win the game of Solenia. So in the next section, I'm going to talk about the solo mode and the differences of the powers and scoring when you're playing on the winter side. All right, lastly, let's talk about the special rules in regards to the winter side of the player board, because it's not entirely the same. So like I mentioned in a previous section, you are going to notice that there's 2 number 1, 2 number 2s, and 2 number 3s. That's because when you do a delivery, you don't have to go in order. Your first one in a number 1, your second one in a number 2, and your third one can go into a number 3. All right, so for example, I could do this. All right, now your following delivery, you might want to do also 1, then 2, then 3. That's because there's a special rule that your second number 2 can only be activated, well, it's special ability activated, if both number 1s are done. And then your second number 3 can be only activated if you have both number 2s done. All right, so in a scenario like this, if I were to do another daytime delivery, well, if I slot it in here, well, I'm not going to gain the bonus of this one until this spot or this spot are filled out. All right, and the same thing goes for the bottom. All right, now some special abilities that you'll gain through the winter side is you're going to see this infinity symbol. That means all future deliveries, you'll have one of those resources automatically covered. So there's one for wood, stone, water, and food, which are the 4 resources of the game. All right, there are some spaces where you get some victory points at the end of the game. And you also notice this special spot. This is all future deliveries for each of these icons represented on those tiles. You'll score some victory points from the general supply. All right, so that's the basic winter side. Now, if you are playing with the improvement tiles, let me slot some in. The game still works pretty much the exact same way. The only special rule is about your level 1 bonus. This only gets activated when you have a delivery on the top and on the bottom of this tile. So after your first delivery, this tile is still not activated. Then I would get a delivery down here. Now I would get this special ability and I would get to activate it, whatever the abilities are. Just look in the rule book. All of them are detailed and written out in there. All right, so for the solo game, essentially you're simulating like you're playing one other player, except that player is going to play completely randomly using a deck of a color you're not using and a die roll. So on the AI's turn, every single time, by the way, they're going to start the game. All right, so they're going to play the first card on the board. So on their turn, they're going to roll a die. And in relation to the blimp, that number, they're going to play their next card from the top of the deck. All right, so this is a 3. So the spot right in front of the blimp is 1. So you're going to count 1, 2, 3. And they're going to place that card in the 3 spot. All right, and if it's a blimp movement, well, then you'll move the blimp like usual, flip the tile around and, you know, simulate like it's flying through the air. But that's how you're placing the cards out onto the game board. Now, a couple of things could happen, different scenarios. Let's say I rolled a 1 and there's already a card there. Now, if it's the opponent's card, well, then it's going to go on to the next available slot. So if the 1 was already taken, it's going to play the card on the 2. All right, if it was on the 6 and I rolled a 6, well, then it's going to go on to the 1. All right, the other scenario is if I'm playing a card, if it's playing a card and it's going on top of itself. In that case, the player gets to decide where around that card this card is going to be played. So it can play it here, 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 or here. All right, and you're just going to be playing like normal. I mean, he's going to play a card, basically blocking spots. Then the current player is going to play a card, and you're just going to go back and forth. All right, now the AI is never going to collect resources or victory point shits or anything. They're just simulating that they're blocking spots. The only extra thing that they're going to do is if they ever play a card on top of a city, light or dark, all right, you're going to remove from the game the delivery tile to the right of the display. All right, so if I went on the light side city here, I'm just going to show you with an example. I'll remove this one from the game. I'll slide everything to the right and then refill the display. All right, now if I'm doing it on a nighttime city, obviously this is the one that I'm simulating that is always to the right, slide everything over and then refill the display. And then that's it. All right, you're going to go back and forth. You're going to try to tally up and try to get the most points possible. And then you're going to compare it to a chart and see how you did overall. All right, but that's how you play solo.